September 25th, 2013. We are in New Harmony, Utah, when I did this interview. This is Kristyn Decker, a very brave woman, honest, gutsy, and very educational. Listen to her story. She will enlighten you about what it's like inside polygamy. I am the voice behind the camera.
Our guest today is Kristyn Decker. Kristyn is founder and director of Sound Choices Coalition. Kristyn has her own radio show, and this dynamic woman is also an author. She is the author of 50 Years in Polygamy.
Yes, 50 Years in Polygamy, Big Secrets and Little White Lies. My uncensored version will be out soon. So watch for the whole story, all of it.
Tell us what Sound Choices Coalition is all about.
I started the Sound Choices Coalition to counter the pro-polygamy coalitions that have come about. They've been out for quite some time, and they are saying, in my opinion, propaganda about what makes polygamy wonderful, that it's under the guise of religion, and that it's all wonderful, perfect, and we're not hurting anybody, and it's just the bad guys out there who are doing this. And when I saw that happening, and when I spoke to people over a long period after my book came out about the violations of human rights violations that are still going on, besides in my own life that was there and all around me, I heard and saw more violations than I could tolerate. It's like someone needs to speak up. Somebody, we all need a whole bunch of people to stand up and say, this is not the way it is. It's not okay. It's not what you see in pro-media all the time. It's the majority of it is the other way around. I started the Sound Choices Coalition. It's a coalition of individuals and other organizations that are anti-human rights violations, and especially concerning patriarchal polygamy. We speak out, we try to educate people, we let them know what's real, what's not real, what's happened in the lives of women and children. We want to have laws changed that will protect these women and children and not have states just ignore the polygamous situations that are going on all around them, especially where there's violations concerned.
And as a result of that, you became a radio host. Tell us about that.
I also felt like the word wasn't getting out enough. So along with the Sound Choices Coalition, along with speaking out about my book and my own life, I started a radio show that would hopefully publicly counter what people hear and what people see in the media from pro-polygamy families. Not to say that there aren't a few that are okay or that are making it or that are, loving one another, but that the majority, again, like I said before, is the opposite. And these are real stories. The interviews are based on ex-polygamous lives, relatives, non-relatives. It's based on research. We've talked with people and will talk with more and more professionals on the radio show, which is Mountain Time at 10 o'clock on Wednesday mornings and Eastern Time at noon on Blog Talk Radio. You can also find my website and listen to other shows that have already been produced. You can listen to those at any time because it is internet radio. You can locate those shows that have already been produced that we've already talked about on kristyn.srbroadcasting.com. So kristyn.srbroadcasting.com. There it will lead you to my site, and you can click on any one of the ones we've done up till now, and of course in the future, and push play and listen to them.
Kristyn, the public things that are generally shown about polygamy are presented on television as a lifestyle choice. They are presented on television as an alternative to monogamy. We have a whole lot of this now coming out on the Learning Channel. It's rather surprising that it's being fed to our children as an okay marriage situation. What are the mathematical odds of that being a reality?
I would say 1 in 1,000 that it would be a reality that could possibly, and that might even be less than that. The families that are pro-families, pro-polygamy families that are in the media get to have the opportunity to have their lives cut, chopped, anything that they want presented to a great deal. It's their show. And you don't get to see the background doctrine that started these supposed lifestyle families, supposed choices. That was another reason for speaking out, is saying, this is based on doctrine, this is based on coercion, this is based on their lifestyles have all been coercive from the time they were little or until they were converted to buy into that they have to be polygamists or they will be damned. It is not what they want to present to you that looks like a lifestyle.
You mentioned doctrine and you mentioned choices. Would you please in depth define doctrine versus choices in relationship to polygamy so that a person who's never heard about it can comprehend exactly the depth and the commitment that is involved in doctrine, choices?
Very good. Doctrine versus choices, exactly.
It should be doctrine versus choices, but they
brainwashing
yes.
is basically what it was. I'm a 7th generation polygamist, as well as my cousin is, and we were taught from the time we were conceived that we had to live polygamy or we would be damned. And this is the way it is truly for the families that you see in public TV. They were also taught that. Most of them, a few of them were converts to that belief system, but the majority of them were also born and raised into that doctrine that says Joseph Smith, who introduced Mormonism, the founder of Mormonism, also introduced polygamy and said that you must live polygamy or you will be damned. You won't make it to the celestial kingdom where all your family is, where all your children is, those that comply to the laws. And that doctrine was the main reason for polygamy for generations. For it wasn't about that I got to choose, that my mother said to me, you can do whatever you want in this life, Kristyn. You can grow up to be whoever you want in this life. You can believe whatever you want. No, you have to live this way. And it doesn't matter how much you suffer. It does not matter a bit, because if you do what God wants you to do, which is be a polygamous wife, allow your husband to have other wives, sex partners, then you will be saved and you will be glorified in the life here in the hereafter. But that glory is basically that I get to continue producing spirit children, continue to be a slave to my husband and all the other wives, and they get to be slaves to each other and make our husband the god of their own world. So it's very demeaning, very coercive, that I and other women, in my opinion, feel that they have to do it. It's not about choice. It never was. Once you're in, you think you have a choice. I thought I did.
So to reiterate, the doctrine says it is a mandatory choice for salvation. It's a mandatory commandment. It's not a choice. You can choose to do as you're told or suffer the consequences. And tell me, Kristyn, what are the consequences?
Damnation. Eternal damnation. You get to live this lifetime and be a polygamist or not. But there's a choice. I have to say there's a choice. You know what it is? Put the bullet to your head, do it or else. Okay, well I will then so I can survive. Or okay, I will so I can have my children. That was the choice. The damnation, and this is what I hear and have heard from many polygamists, even families, members, and what I was raised with. You're not going to go to hell. We don't teach our children they're going to go to hell if they don't live that. But in the doctrine itself, there are 3 kingdoms of heaven, and the celestial being the highest. If you live plural marriage, if you conform to all the rules and regulations, and if you're bribed and you think it's good enough to suffer and endure to get there, then you get to be the kings and queens and the glorious women with all these gods of your own earth being and be part of that. If you don't conform, you get to be blown down into the celestial. I get the 2 mixed up, terrestrial, celestial, the lowest of those. And that's the state of hell. I was taught that over and over. We were taught, and if you read LDS scripture, it says That is a state of hell. You will never be with the rest of your family. You will be servants. You will be, plateaued. You don't get that eternal progression. You are there. And then they say, oh yeah, wait, there is eternal progression. But do you ever get out of that kingdom? No, it's a damnation. Stopping. Damn means stopped. And that's where it ends.
So damn is to stop. Damnation is eternal loss of progress. You are stopped in servitude throughout eternity.
Not only that, Rebecca, but it's coercive in the sense that we were told we were the favored children of God and that we have to do this. And you know what? Because we're favored, therefore, the more you're given, the more is required of you. So that's another thing. It was a guilt trip. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm the prophet's daughter. I better behave myself. Oh my gosh, I can't think that way. I have to be this best example. And we were consistently told that. You're the prophet's daughter. You need to be a good example. You need to conform. You have to do this. So there's a lot of pressure for women, well, for all, men and women and children, to do this. It's not the choices, like I said, or you're as free as your choices. Do it or else.
You mentioned the men becoming a god and peopling their own planet with their own seed. You didn't exactly say that, but that's the implication. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. The doctrine, at least the fundamental doctrine of Mormonism, taught that men would become gods. They believed in the Adam God doctrine. In fact, that was taught by many of the original LDS prophets, and preached that Adam and Eve, that Adam was God of this world, of this earth, and that's why he was told to multiply and replenish the earth, and he should have all these children, and this is his world. Adam was a god of this world. And Mormonism taught that then that every man that qualified, that had many wives and children, would have their own world, and therefore that was the justification for them having all these plural wives, so that they could eventually populate their own earth, their own kingdoms, and that they could be gods of their own world. Men may become gods.
So in the celestial kingdom, the women are eternally pregnant, always having more and more spirits to people on earth?
And that the spirit wives are going to have those spirit children, and people would have to really study to have any of this make sense. For me, it was consistently, Mormonism for me was a consistent dichotomy. It was like, no, wait, that's not true. But wait, this is the way it is. But wait, Jesus endured all things, or suffered all things, or went through all things. But wait, no, he didn't do that. No, he didn't do that, and he didn't do that. So this is how I see Mormonism is, yes, we get to be the wives for our husband, who gets to consistently keep being plural wives, gets to have spirit children for more and more and more souls of their earth, more and more physical bodies of their earth, or whatever it is called, their planet, their kingdom. And we get to wear that crown with how many children we have had on this earth, and our husbands gets to wear the crown with all the jewels that has, and I imagine that's metaphorically, but it's about your value and your how worthy you were to help build his kingdom.
So, like on earth, even in eternity, a wife gets less and less and less of a husband as he takes more and more and more wives throughout eternity, and that's her heaven?
Hey, we don't care by then. All we are is, we don't have bodies, and we won't care, and we won't have any feelings. We will have perfected ourselves. And of course, I'm saying that completely facetiously. That was what I was taught. What I heard most of my life. It's like, oh, come on. By then, it won't matter. All you're going to care about is building the kingdom of God, building another kingdom, when that God being your husband, and so forth. Which doesn't make sense if you think about it. And I become my husband, and my children, all those daughters marry their husband. Where are all those children that I had? They're supposed to be out there helping their gods, their husbands, become worlds. I'm like, wait, where'd all my kids go? Are they supposed to stay here and help build my kingdom or my husband's kingdom? Yeah.
The interbreeding is just forgotten about? What about that?
Oh, well, I hear lots of justification for that. See, here again comes that interbreeding. if I only have my children and he has his children in that God kingdom world, and those wives that produced all those children for him are spirit children, who else is there to marry? Who else would there be? And if you're good enough, those defects and those physical defects just won't happen, and we have to keep our blood royal. And again, I'm just throwing out these crazy thoughts and thinking about why it's okay. And originally, in fact, on the All Red Line, I understand that there was many cousins and relatives over the hundreds of years that interbred, and that was okay to do, supposedly. Eventually what happened is that people were realizing scientifically that this was creating very physical problems and damage to those that married close relatives. And it was looked down upon because people were realizing this isn't okay. And so blamed on not us necessarily being gods anymore or righteous anymore, it was the defects of our bodies, or that our bodies are not perfect, and so therefore this is what's going to happen. But for a long time, the All Red group, which I'm from, the AUB, didn't believe in marrying close marriage relatives. It was very rare that it happened, and it did now and then, but it was rare. And I was told not to marry relatives. My children were told that. We didn't believe that that was good. Around us, there were other groups, Kingstons, who were intermarrying relatives, sometimes as close as a half-brother or sister. That's been going on for a long time, and there have been many childbirth defects, many babies who died from severe birth defects. In the FLDS community, or the United Order now called, there has been a disease called Alzheimer's disease, and that's from all these years of interbreeding, and it's a violent, you should look it up online, it's a horrible, terrible disease that children are born with, where their bones are just mushy, saggy, their brains are, there's not enough that holds them together pretty much, and they don't make it very long in their lives, and it's so tragic. In the FLDS community, that disease is higher there than it is anywhere in the whole United States put together, and I'm not positive, but I even think outside of the country they have focused on per capita how many children have been born with this defect, and it is huge compared to any other per capita city with the disease that's just spread out here and there.
When we talk about breeding and interbreeding, am I to understand that when a man has multiple mates, it takes him to the highest degree of glory and he becomes a god? What happens to a woman if she has even one other mate?
Well, and I always thought, well, hey, if my husband can have other wives, I should be able to have other husbands if I wanted to. And of course I didn't really want to, but if I wanted to, I should be able to. It's not fair. That God is not fair. And I brought that question up to my father, and I knew already the answer. I knew it from the time I was a little girl. You don't get to do that. The husbands do. The men marry other partners. The men get other wives. The men are the leaders. They're the ones who tell and dictate what will happen and what will happen. No, absolutely not. It would be considered adultery. I would be punished by God. I would be could be cast out. Or, as time went on, some of those that committed adultery, men and women outside of marriage, would be forgiven, depending on who you were, and told a hand slap, well, you just stay celibate for a year or 6 months, or how severe, the leader decided that punishment should be. But basically, no, it is absolutely not acceptable. If I said to my husband or my sisters, or said, I'm bringing home my husbands too, and this is the way it's going to be, no, absolutely not okay. It's not a part of God. It's considered evil and wicked.
For our listening audience, we both came from the same family. We're cousins. So, Kristyn, when I grew up in our household, we were taught that women that committed adultery could only be saved through blood atonement if the husband so decided, and it was okay with God, blood atonement would not happen until the house of the Lord and the church was put in order, because the church was out of order, but it was okay with God. But we would be damned for all eternity and destroyed, whether we were destroyed in the flesh or destroyed spiritually. The price of a second mate for us was destruction.
You bet. I agree. And Rebecca, that's why I say as time went by, as time went on, and this is just near the end of my leaving, when you were born, being maybe 10 years older than me, and that as time went on, I watched that happen, the leniency and the rules change, and get, well, this and well, that, and we'll allow this and we won't allow that, and yet the rules getting also more strict and more tough. And those were for those people who are going to make it to the celestial kingdom. Okay, all right, let's bring the little favorite people over here for more ordinance work, for more rituals, for more things that's going to get them to heaven. But you are right. I grew up when I was younger. That adultery meant that was it. There was nothing more. That severed your marriage. That sent you straight to hell on a woman's part. And death, you might as well wish for your death, because being killed, and I said that on my show this morning too, having died or being killed would have been better than to not, because you would get blood atoned, which would be forgiven your sins. Killed, die, Mom would say that. It's better that you die than to go astray or break the rules.
So in our culture, blood atonement was equivalent to an honor killing in the Islamic culture.
Oh, yeah. I don't know any specific incident. I could not say knowing. I've heard, and so have many other people, that actual knowing, the actual proof, other than, of course, Erbil LeBaron going around having my uncle killed and other people killed, which he considered blood atonement for not doing what they were told to do. And that was condoned, and actually, even in the discourses of Brigham Young, taught that there's a piece I read recently, I wish I could paraphrase it even, that said if it's better that a woman die than for them to leave the gospel and know the truth and leave.
And the truth in our world was living polygamy. That was the truth.
That was the main focus, is living polygamy and allowing your husband to have as many sex partners as he desired, or as many would come his way, to build his kingdom and make him a god.
So he was guaranteed romance and a new lover for all time and eternity. And a woman was guaranteed less and less and less time and attention and caring for all time and eternity.
Exactly. Families, even now, plural families I watch, those women not dare speak about their heartaches. They're considered insecure or rocking the boat, or I better behave myself, I better be nice. Their time is spent, like you just said, being another romantic partner for my husband. Not only romantic, I better be the best partner. I better fix the best meals. I better make sure his needs are met. I better kiss his feet and take his shoes off and rub his back. It's all about the men getting what their needs met. Well, that is if the woman's doing what she's supposed to be doing. If she has any feelings, if she tries to complain, if she has emotions or starts going off the deep end, that's not okay. And it's very scary to do that, because that puts you on the out. For heaven's sake, he's got other wives who love him, who won't give him a bad time, who won't fight with him, who won't argue or cry because I'm fed up to here, I can't take it anymore. That's the part of the men, is they have to do this too. If they believe in it anyway, they have to do it too. And they have to shut those women down, because can you imagine those feelings and those jealousies and those heartaches? It's enough to make you want to die, like it did my brother.
You mentioned a little earlier we have to let go of our jealousy and our feelings and become better people. Is denying one's feelings, the truth of one's emotions, considered making you better? To deny your own inner truth and what you really feel, does that make a woman better in polygamy?
Oh yeah, you hear that as well on public and some of the pro-polygamy is this makes us better people. This makes us better women. To suffer, to give, to be submissive, to do whatever the Lord requires, whatever her husband requires, to get over the jealousy, to not show I'm angry, to just stuff it all in and behave yourself, is definitely, it's like I said, if you do that well in this life, then by the time you get to heaven, you're pretty much perfected. And that's the whole idea. It's like you're told, women are told, they need to behave and get over it, grow up. It's considered a defect of character. It's considered a sin to have those feelings, to carry it out, to have jealousy, to want to be mad, to fight. And that's why the women say, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. I'm doing better today. Next week I'll be even better. And if they have a bad feeling, what they call bad feeling or negative feeling, they beat themselves up for it. I did that. I'm sure that was part of my depression. And that's another thing. Depression is huge, huge, huge. Suicidal depression for women is way more big in plural families than it is in monogamous families. Research shows and has proven that.
So when you numb yourself out and don't feel anymore, you quit feeling, then you're getting to be a perfect person, perhaps eligible for becoming a goddess in heaven. The key, destruction of your feelings and your own truth makes you a better wife? Is that a fact?
Oh yeah, because then I can just be a Stepford wife and do whatever you want, honey. Whatever you need, honey. Do you need this, honey? Do you need that, honey? And according to the gospel of plural marriage, that makes you a better woman. To suffer, to stuff the feelings down. That's what I want to say. Oh, my word, a lot of stuffing. I was a compulsive overeater to the max. And I know that I was stuffing my feelings down. I weighed 235 pounds at one time in my life, at one of the lowest points, you'd say, of depression. And I know I was trying in every way I knew how. I didn't believe in drugs. I didn't believe in smoking. I didn't believe in Prozac. So what other thing was there to do that would be a compulsive addiction thing that I could do to try to cover up all those heartaches and emotions and feelings? And I see that a lot.
The polygamous poster boys on TV have the slogan, love should be multiplied. But it's not multiplied for their women. It's subtracted and subtracted and subtracted.
Divided.
It's not multiplied for their children. In the life of a child, love is spelled T-I-M-E. Very, very few polygamous men have time for their children, especially as the family grows. So my question to you is this. Why would a loving God send his sons to the highest degree of glory for multiple sexual partners and the cause and effect of that, and destroy his daughters for the same thing?
And the other sons who are required or to do the same or cast out.
Yes.
And I don't believe the loving God would. I don't believe any loving God in this world, of this world or any other world, would do that.